back at it again with my main man. We got his updated numbers. Stuckey is 14-9 on the season. Looking at this week's slate, he is not fading the Titans. Not on the board, but I
did tease. I teased the Colts, so in a way, I'm fading the Titans. And if it got to 3, I would. Okay. But it's not going to. It's down to 2 now. I mean, maybe it will, but I don't think it will. So we won't have to hear from the lovely Titans fans, and I have a lot of good friends, by the way, who are Titans fans, and I won't have to hear from them, hopefully.
And I would say that the number one thing I've learned from you in the last year and a half is the Tomlin stat, and goddamn did he come through last week. Even money line. Now we could argue that Brady's jet setting and flying around with Robert and friends, but a win's a win. Covered pretty easily.
I did not see them winning outright with all their backup defenders, and but that's what you get sometimes, especially with in the Tomlin spot. Now the defense is depending on who plays for Pittsburgh. And you see this in a lot of sports, and NBA, basketball. Like when there's a ton of guys out in a good spot at home, everyone just plays way above their head, and then probably come back to reality the next week. But yeah, that it all came together for there, and a shocking win for Pittsburgh.
Okay, let's dive into the games. This game is pretty interesting on paper. The Jets have won the last couple weeks. Zach Wilson hasn't done much, but it's pretty clear. Like you watch their roster. Like, they got good players, I mean, defensively, Sauce has been awesome. Breece Hall, who someone told me in training camp on the Jets, on their staff, was like, this fucking kid can play. And he's kind of coming on. As long as Zach doesn't turn it over, they have a lot of physical players. I didn't know Quinnen Williams had a brother named Quincy, and Quincy he kicked the Packers' ass last week. The Jets are feisty, but, it's hard to win every single week when you're basically just avoiding the quarterback making a mistake. Denver's defense is pretty unreal. I think they've given up 6 total touchdowns. Like they have been. What's crazy is everyone the last 5 years since Russell kind of became a star was like, God, if his defense was as sweet as it used to be, they would be unbeatable. And now he does have a sweet defense again, and him and the offense suck. But this game's at Denver. I would say, you lose this game, shit. I mean, the season's just a wrap. You're just done. This to me is just a kitchen sink game for Denver. -1. If I would have told you at Denver this game, September 1st, the line would have probably been 7, right? So I would take Denver -1. How about you?
Yeah, I love Denver here. By the way, I was president of the Sauce Gardner fan club in college and thought whoever got him, and I love the Jets draft, but he went 1,100 snaps in college, didn't allow a touchdown, 9 interceptions. In against Alabama, when they played Alabama, Jamison Williams, when he was matched up with him, they rarely threw to him. He had 1 catch for -2 yards. Kid's going to be an All-Pro, and
to me the only knock to me that's a classic. Even though Cincinnati was clearly good, if he had been at Alabama, LSU, or Georgia, no chance the guy from LSU who didn't do anything the last 2 years goes above him. That's just not possible. He's the 3rd pick, right? He just goes to the Texans.
Yeah, no, he's that good. But yeah, and I like what the Jets are building, but they still don't have a quarterback. This is the look-ahead line for this game was -7.5, and if you look, the Broncos covered last week. It's not like they didn't live up to expectations. They could have easily won that game. They had about 160 yards of penalties. They muffed a punt late, and they still could. They had a chance to beat the Chargers on the road. And you forget that they did still beat the 49ers. Why? Because their defense, arguably, they're right up there with the 49ers and the Bills for maybe the best defense in the NFL. I mean, Josie Jewell didn't even play. You have Alex Singleton in there, who might be better. He had 21 tackles last week, but you got Surtain, who basically just takes one side of the field out, just completely out. Yeah, he's the best corner in the NFL. And then, Justin Simmons is back, one of the best safeties in the NFL. This defense has depth. It's really, really good. No one's ever going to blow this team out. And Zach Wilson is not the guy. If the Jets can just find a quarterback. I mean, last week they won at Lambeau. Zach Wilson threw for 100 yards. He had a -0.4 EPA per play. The only guy worse was P.J. Walker. That's it. And if you go back since 2020 through today, 70 quarterbacks with at least 75 snaps. the 3 worst quarterbacks in the NFL, EPA per player, P.J. Walker, Zach Wilson, and Jake Luton, the Jags guy.
He's not good company.
No, and if you look at what the Jets have done, they're overbought in the market now. They're overinflated. I mean, they beat Jacoby Brissett by 1 in a miracle comeback. They trailed by double digits in the fourth quarter. They beat Mitch Trubisky and then Kenny Pickett in his debut in another miracle comeback. Pickett threw 3 picks, and they also trailed by double digits late. Needed a touchdown in the final 30 seconds again, as they did against the Browns. And so then you look, who else did they beat? Skylar Thompson, making his NFL debut, a third-string quarterback. They won 40-17. The game was 19-17 in the fourth quarter, dead even statistically. And then if you look at the Packers game, which really got everyone on this Jets wagon, the yards were 278 to 278. They scored 2 offensive touchdowns on trick plays, a punt block touchdown. They blocked a field goal. The Packers are also a mess, just like we've seen from the Browns, and the Steelers haven't been good. So, you look at the Jets' resume, it's a bunch of backup quarterbacks. And then they got blown out by the Bengals, blown out by the Ravens. So, you just cannot trust Zach Wilson on the road here against this defense. Under pressure, which he's going to be under pressure a lot against Denver, he is 4 of 23 for 49 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Horrendous. So, I don't care if Russell Wilson plays. I might even prefer Brett Rippon to play, who, by the way, beat the Jets 2 years ago in a start. It doesn't matter. Russell Wilson's been doing nothing, so I don't care if he doesn't start or does. And I just think you have to take the Broncos here at -1 at home with that defense against one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Another thing the Jets did last week is they just relied. Breece Hall is going to be a really good running back.
Stud.
They relied on their running game against the Packers, who are now the 32nd ranked rush defense in the NFL. Not going to be able to do that here against Denver. So, yeah, I think Denver finds a way to win this game, similar to, what they've done in a few other ugly games this year. But that defense is real. So it's 2 limited quarterbacks, 2 limited offenses. I'll take the better defense at home in, like you said, a kitchen sink game. So, yeah, I'll take the Broncos here.
Not knowing the results, obviously, this weekend, what do you think the look-ahead line would be if you had to guess on Patriots at Jets? Because if the Patriots are an underdog or even a pick 'em, I might put mortgage payment on that thing here in a week.
Yeah, well, it depends. That's going to depend on who's quarterback.
Yeah, it's Monday. They play Monday night.
They play Monday night. I said I was president of the Sauce Gardner Club. I was president of the Bailey Zappi Hour from Houston Baptist to Western Kentucky. So I actually love Bailey Zappi. I don't know if he's going to start this week, but he's been better than Mac Jones so far. Obviously, small sample size. I would assume Patriots -1, 2. Yeah. I don't know if it'll get the 3 if the Patriots look really good and the Jets lose, potentially. Depends on the quarterback situation, but I would assume, Patriots small favorite.
Okay, let's get to Jacksonville hosting the Giants. And obviously the Giants, I don't want to say it's a miracle win because they've kept games close, but Lamar just had one of his throwback, what are you doing on that interception? I mean, that was, I know you're a Ravens guy, that was an abomination. That was Zach Wilson level stuff. But the Giants are just feisty. They just stay in these games. Daniel Jones has not thrown a pick in the last several games. Obviously, he was a turnover machine, with Joe Judge. So it just, can you just bank on that every single week? Jacksonville's, I would say, has come back to earth a little bit, but are the Giants eventually just going to have a dud game? It's just hard to keep playing ugly, be right in it, rely on a turnover late, and it's worked for them, but this would probably be a stay away for me. How about you?
Yeah, I like the Jags here. I think it's time to buy the Jags. They lost 3 straight, and if you look, they lost by 8 in Philly in a monsoon, and they lost the turnover battle 5-0 in that game. Then they lost at home to the Texans, but they outgained them by 250 yards. And then last week at Indy, they lose, in the final seconds. First time in NFL history, a team has lost with a quarterback that had 20-plus pass attempts, a 90% completion percentage, 3-plus touchdowns, and no interceptions. 103 years has never happened. So another very unlucky loss. So I think coming back here off 3 straight losses, it's time to buy them and then sell the Giants. I mean, the New York teams are getting a lot of hype, and rightfully so. They haven't been this good in a while. But just similar to the Jets, let's look at what the Giants have done. They beat the Titans by 1. They outscored them 8-0 in the fourth quarter. They lost at home to Cooper Rush. They beat the Panthers at home by 3. It was tied in the fourth. They had 2 55-yard field goals. Like, we've seen what the Panthers are. Then they beat the Bears at home by 1 possession. And then they beat the Packers in London. They were down 20-10 in the fourth quarter again. Down 17-0. Credit to them for coming back. But what have we seen from the Packers, by the way? I mean, that win doesn't look great. And then they beat the Ravens last week. That's their best win by far. But again, down 20-10 in the fourth. And they were outgained 406 to 230. The Ravens averaged 7 yards per play. The Giants 3.9. So like in the fourth quarter, they've outscored teams, I think 45-10. And they've won 5 one-possession games against the Bears, Panthers, Titans, the Packers, and Ravens. Like, it's not, and they've been tied or trailed in the fourth in all 5 of those games. And then, obviously, they lost to Cooper Rush at home. So, yeah, from a matchup perspective, Jags D, 6th in rush success rate, really good against the run. It's a Todd Bowles disciple, Caldwell defensive coordinator, so that scheme usually is good against the run. So I think they'll be good here against Barkley. And you mentioned that Jones hasn't turned it over, but if you look at some of the advanced metrics, he has a lot of turnover-worthy throws. So I think turnovers are going to come. And Trevor Lawrence this year has really struggled against cover 2. He's a 50% on-target rate against cover 2, 80% against every other defense. Giants play no cover 2. It's either usually man and blitzing or cover 3, and Lawrence has been okay against the blitz. So, yeah, I think that this is the time to buy the Jags. I love the Giants. I love what Dable's doing. And they're going to be feisty all year, but I think this is a good spot to sell them. I think Jags pick up this win.
You think the Giants can make the playoffs?
Sure. I mean, if you look at the NFC.
Because they still got multiple games against the Commanders. This would be the type game if they were to win it. You get to 6-1, you just got so many wins banked in. Now, they still got to play 2 games against the Eagles. They got another game against the Cowboys. But to me, the 2 Commanders games, they got to go play Seattle.
I would assume you'd probably split. You probably split with the Eagles. I bet, especially the Eagles are still undefeated. They probably lose in New York. But yeah, look at the NFC.
And the Eagles game is the last game of the season. So I mean, who knows? The Eagles could have the number 1 seed clinched.
Yep, they could be playing for nothing. That's a good point. Yeah, but if you look, like the AFC is pretty. It's pretty superior.
Yeah, I agree.
Because if you look at the NFC, it's like, who do you really trust? And in that. The NFC East has like 3 of the best teams. In the NFC West, it's like the Rams right now are a mess. You don't trust the Seahawks or Cardinals. The 49ers have to get healthy. In the North, it's like the Vikings. Like, are they really that? Trust me, but they're probably going to make the playoffs. The Packers are a mess. And then in the NFC South, it's basically just the Bucks. So like, there's 7 spots here. Giants are certainly. I would favor them to make the playoffs.
Let's talk about a South team, because watching Atlanta closely last week. They're built a little probably like the early Ravens were, a college team that runs the ball a lot. If they can get a lead, they can just slam the ball, right? They got a couple running backs that fucking break tackles, that fall forward, that are just pretty productive. And one thing's pretty clear, going back to his Titans days, that Arthur Smith kind of has some Kyle Shanahan in him. Like, the guy loves to run the football, and he's good at scheming the run. But, like, they're not necessarily built. I mean, they're just not going to be, especially now they got corner injuries to come back, and definitely to stop teams that are humming passing the ball. Like, watching the Bengal game, feels like Burrow's kind of getting his swag back. Obviously, Jamar just is a stud. Higgins a baller. No one likes the coach, but they do just have some star power on offense. And this feels like the game on the road. They're more likely to be down 10-0 than up 10-0, and I don't trust them. Now, overall, though, like, to me, Atlanta's going to be a feisty team all year long. They're a team to keep an eye on, and just on the right matchup with maybe less of a quarterback as an underdog to probably good value some weeks. But I don't love this matchup for them at Cincinnati.
Yeah, I like the Bengals here -6. This before the year, this line would have been like 11. Look at line was like 7.5, 8, and I think under a touchdown you have to play the Bengals here. Again, this is similar to the Giants and Jets. Like the Falcons last week, like an impressive win on paper. Like if you just look at the result and who they beat, but I didn't take much from it. They beat the 49ers, and they were outgained by the 49ers. They, the yards per play battle they lost. The 49ers were down like 1 million defensive starters, and they.
They got a touchdown on a fumble.
Yeah, defensive touchdown. And the last 6 drives that San Francisco had, 4 of them ended in Falcons territory. 0 points. So a really fluky result there. And if you look at what they've done, and I haven't faded the Falcons yet. They're 6-0 against the spread. But, like, all right, they won a coin flip against the Saints. They won a coin flip against the Seahawks. They came back to win. A coin flip against the Browns. They came back to win. Probably should have lost. And then, they did cover against the Rams, but they were down 28-3 against the Rams. They did cover against the Bucs. They're down 21-0 against the Bucs, and then the Bucs secondary had all their corners go out, and then they got in the back door.
And the Rams comeback was a punt block touchdown.
Punt block for
fumble.
a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they've been quite fortunate in some of these covers. And look, I mean, they have injuries in the secondary. You have Casey Hayward, who went on IR. He's been playing really well. And, even Terrell and Oliver got nicked up last week. That's bad news against Cincy, obviously, especially when you cannot get pressure. Falcons are dead last in the NFL in hurry rate, pressure rate, and adjusted sack rate. So your corners, you don't have a full deck in the secondary, and you get 0 pressure against Burrow. Now Higgins is healthy, since he can spread you out. And yeah, it seemed, and that offensive line's coming together. Burrow, I agree, is starting to get his swagger back. And last week against the Saints, I like some of the play calling. They were putting him in, early downs. They were throwing it, shotgun. And even if Zach Taylor goes back to his roots and just says, let me hand it to Mixon, the Falcons' run D is one of the worst in the NFL. So, yeah, I think that this sets up for a Bengals win by 7+ at home. And, yeah, I mean, look, the Falcons are 6-0 against the spread, but the Bengals, they just find ways to cover. They're 12-2 against the spread their last 14. But I just think from a matchup perspective, this doesn't set up well for Atlanta. I think it's time to fade them.
What about odds on the Tennessee Volunteers? Probably gone up a little bit to win the national championship.
I love the Vols. You want to hear a bet I have that's going to be – this is my nightmare scenario. I bet Tennessee 14-1 to win the division.
Ooh.
Win the division. And so now – but if they lose to Georgia and just have one loss the rest of the year, they probably go to the college football playoff and – with a chance to win the national championship.
But they could
win the national championship, and then I would lose my 14-1 division bet. So, I will be wearing all orange when they play Georgia in Athens in a few weeks. So, yeah, the price has probably come down to. I haven't checked, but this is probably the wrong time to buy Tennessee. But they are exciting to watch, and for what it's worth, they didn't play without a first-round draft pick at receiver in Cedric Tillman, who will be back soon. And this is a guy that is a big-time player. Last year against Georgia, a historically great defense, he had 10 catches for 200 yards. And against Alabama last year, I think he had 8 catches for 170 yards. One of the best receivers in the country. Tennessee was without him. And now they had Brew McCoy, Jalen Hyatt, who had 5 touchdowns. You add Tillman to that receiving core with the way Hooker is humming. Well, that is.
I'll say this: if they can beat Kentucky at home, which is obviously would you consider that their rival?
Sort of, yeah. That's Tennessee fans wouldn't say it, but yeah, it's.
And Kentucky's been kicking, and Stoops has been kicking their ass lately, right?
Yeah, I think they split the last. So they've been really close.
The Georgia game's at Georgia. That's a tough one.
It's brutal.
But if you somehow can upset, I mean, you're in the clear. Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. I mean,
yeah, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you lose the SEC championship then or what, with wins over Georgia and Alabama. But yeah, here at Kentucky, it's always, the bars are always awesome for the Tennessee game. But now with where Tennessee is, it's going to be awesome down here at the bar. So if you're in Lexington, hit me up and drinks are on me.
Fun times. Well, Stuckey, have a good weekend, and talk to you soon, bro.
Absolutely. Good luck.